goal is to bring you your next favorite band.
Sweet, that intro is my new favorite band. That's phenomenal. I'm so excited to be on.
Yeah. I heard a rumor that you might be able to play that song live today.
You heard correctly. Yes.
Excellent. So,
good enough for rock.
I don't know when I rock out here on your next favorite band show.
And listen, it's going to be everybody's favorite band.
Like Phil, you weren't supposed to make me get all. God Almighty!
But this
Phil.
is why we do it.
Like seriously, I gotta gather myself. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome to your next favorite band. That's both the show title and our promise to you. We here at Stereophilia Studio are tireless in our pursuit of finding incredible, genre-defiant artists who are either a hot up-and-coming band or a group that has been delivering for years but have flown under the radar.
Tonight, we have an eternal optimist who's obsessed with failure, singer-songwriter Brian Dunne, who is also part 2 of 4.
Each month, we will bring you live streams, audio podcasts, and perhaps even a live concert where you can listen to the stories and hear the music of artists personally curated by us based on what we feel will be worthy of your time. Be sure to subscribe and tune in to each episode because the possibilities are endless and you never know who will be your next favorite band. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Philip Reese. And I'm joined by fellow co-host.
That was my cue. Eight seconds in, and I messed up the cue. Fantastic. Hey, Philip. Happy February.
Happy February. And you are listening to...
Oh, George Robb is here. Hi.
Your next favorite band.
Your next favorite band with me
and
Philip over there.
You're also
there.
Another next favorite band.
Oh, am I?
Yes,
I was
you
your
are.
previous favorite band.
Yes.
I'm old news. We're on to the...
Do you know what this is? Episode 150.
Ooh. Sesquicentennial? What is that? No, it's... Right?
Sounds good.
What's 150? Sesquicentennial, right? Or is
if
that
you
250?
say it with a lot of confidence, no one's going to question you.
It's the sesquicentennial episode of your next favorite band. Congratulations.
Thank you. But more of a congratulations to you on these milestones. Recently passed episode 900 and inducted into, shit you not, the Podcast Hall of Fame.
Somehow conned
this is
the right
legitimately
people.
Breaking news.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, it's unreal. It's weird that there's a Hall of Fame for something that's only 20 years old.
Well, listen,
but
someone has to do it really well.
I'll take it.
Yes, and it's because of the Geologic podcast.
That's right.
So take a moment to bask in that glory. Tell us a little bit about that show and how it got to 900 episodes.
Let me just bask for a second here. Oh. Yeah, man. Yeah. I started this 18 years ago, sort of not on a lark, but kind of as an experiment to see if I could do a couple shows.
That's
maybe
the
talk
same
about,
way I was too. I was like,
right?
Yeah.
I think I have this theory that every really successful person, and not that I'm really successful, but every person that becomes successful in some endeavor starts it with like a,
Right.
It's like very rarely do you hear about someone,
Sure.
Whether it's Bill Gates or it's always just like, yeah, I'll do this for the summer. This is cool.
It seems interesting. Fuck
yeah,
around and find out.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, you've taken over half the planet. So yeah, I just sort of started this thing
Geologically
18 years
speaking.
ago. Geologically speaking, exactly. Started 18 years ago, and I got a lovely email about 5 months ago, and someone said, we want to induct you. And I was like, this is a scam. There's no way this is real.
Right, yes.
You want my credit card info, and you're not getting it.
Prince in somewhere in Africa.
I'm not buying the ad in the back of the program. I'm sorry. It's not. And then it turns out, no, it was a thing. So
Legit.
Went down to Orlando and did all that. And it was a wonderful time. Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah.
I have a question. I have a question for you, though, before we get going, because it is February, which is Valentine's Day month.
Correct, yes.
Do you think that chocolate is overrated?
So I do think what is very easily available is, But when you get real legitimately made chocolate, like from
Ooh.
a chocolatier.
Yes, like some small Eastern European country,
Correct.
right? That
Something like
has
that.
it's 94% goat's milk or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, whatever their grandmother's recipe was.
Okay, that's a very interesting twist on it because
So
I would
think
say it's
Jit
overrated.
chocolate is great.
Yeah. Okay.
And what I thought was like the sheer proof of it was it helped Harry Potter after the Dementors. So
Well,
there you go.
Yeah. And if anything's going to help Harry, we're all in.
It's chocolate. But yes.
Okay. All right.
Oh, and this was the only other thing I wanted to do.
Yeah, sorry.
I wanted to help promote this.
Oh my gosh, yes, I'm super excited for this show.
Yeah.
This is March 8th, Saturday,
So this
March
is now
8th.
pivoting to your, prowess as a speaker, but then also as a musician.
That's the thing,
Yeah.
I can prattle endlessly about other people's music. I have
About
this,
anything.
I have a series on YouTube called 7 Songs where I talk about, 7 songs on a theme.
Nice.
Like maybe all the titles have colors, or maybe it's all Billy Joel songs, or it's all songs with great bridges. And I've been doing that since COVID. And I just thought, you know what? I should like maybe do this for my own tunes. Because I have a bit of an inside track as to like, why that word was chosen for that line, or why that chord progression happens there. I got a pretty good insight.
You might know a guy.
Yeah, I might know a guy. So we're gonna do 10 songs, 9 of mine, one really awesome cover that I can't wait to talk about.
Nice.
Song I've wanted to play correctly for 40 years. 36 years I've wanted to play this cover.
Have you played it incorrectly?
I did play it incorrectly once.
Okay.
Yes. At Music Fest I played it not incorrectly, but not accurately, I would say.
Got
It wasn't incorrect, but it wasn't super accurate. But
Subtle
I'm excited for
difference,
that. But
yeah.
yeah, subtle difference. But to have a band now that I have with the George Robb Band, which is Vinny and Matt and Eric and Kira and CJ, and that they can pull off this song. A little spoiler: it's a King Crimson song.
Oh my gosh!
And it's incredibly challenging, but they are so crazy good.
Yes,
that I am so psyched to play
one more
that.
Here, it's here in Bethlehem. Hopefully, you're listening close enough to catch this. Right there's a good promo right there. Saturday, March 8th, 7 p.m. Ice House, which is one of our favorite venues. Yes. So definitely check that out. Follow George Harab on socials. One last topic before we bring on our guest, which I'm super pumped for. Brian Dunne is stunning singer-songwriter. And then will be a terrific interview, and then what they do within Fantastic Cat is just so fun to dive into, as this is our second part of 4, because we had Anthony D'Amato on previously, and you were the co-host of that one, so you're going to be the through line that keeps this afloat. But the Grammys, so they happened this week.
Yes.
And I just people assume I will be into that, and I've never been in my entire life. And people then will say, well, why? And I'm like, well, there's a bunch of reasons. One, like, I don't understand the difference between album, record, song, performance, all this stuff. Then it's like super hyper genred, but then not. Like a gospel section, a roots section, a gospel roots section.
Right.
There are people who are new artist of the year nominees who have been doing it for 20 years. I mean, like, nothing seems to make sense to me. And then where it really bottomed out for me was I was in high school, and like whoever I was into was nominated for in their genre category as well as album of the year. And you would think, okay, if you're an album of the year nominee, you're definitely better than everyone else nominated in this subcategory. Didn't win that one. And I'm like, how does that make any sense? So kind of, and I think bottom line, I gave it a lot of thought because I needed a more coherent answer than just nothing makes sense to me. I think when I watch the Oscars or the Emmys or the Golden Globes, it will illuminate something for me that I should go check out. And I feel like the Grammys doesn't do any of that. Either it's something that's already obviously known, or something that is so in the weeds that it's not for me. And I don't feel like it illuminates anything for me to go then further my curiosity or intellectual kind of like journey.
I would say from the mainline awards that happen with the Grammys, yes, that's true. But if you look into the secondary awards, the ones that aren't broadcast, the ones that are just posted on the
and
Grammys
maybe that's fair
site,
that I need to,
classical or like mixing or soundtrack or spoken word or some ethnic things.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of a nice resource that way.
Then I would say give me 2 nights of that show where that happens also.
Well, that would be great. Yeah.
And then I would watch that second night or the
I wonder if they must post. I mean, the night that happens with all the technical awards like mixing and all that kind of stuff, that's got to be, I would think it's somewhere,
Gotta
right?
be
Nowadays,
somewhere. It's got to be
streaming.
Someone, right? We have 20 billion channels,
right? Some
and all
YouTube
these
sub
streaming things.
channels
Anyway.
got to have it. But
Yeah,
if you go
so
to the
I
website
s-
and look at the things.
You've
it's
made a
kinda
fair
like,
point. I probably dismissed it out of hands at like 16 years old. And then every
Yeah.
time it's come up, I've just sounded like, old man shakes fist at sky,
Well, it's all cross promotional pollination and all that kind of stuff. So
Right,
you
right,
know
right.
that there's all kinds of back room, shenanigans.
And do
whatever.
we,
And it's
do
like,
we
okay.
really need Rolling Stones and Bob Marley still winning awards? Like that, I think we can move
Beatles,
on.
right? Beatles
And
got
the Beatles, right? They all have
which I love, I adore, but it's like, yeah, oh well.
let someone else win these awards. Like I don't need that in my life. I already know they're amazing. Like
Yeah.
I didn't
There is
need
this
that.
weird mix of like nostalgia and current things and trying to again amortize and cross pollinate and like okay,
Yeah.
so what are the marketing structures that are going to be underlying the it's all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So
Anyway, so
yeah.
the hot take there. I'm not a Grammys guy. I wish, and then now, yes, I will check out the better categories. Let's call it that, and something that could possibly open my eyes and ears to something.
Because then
new.
there's like the American Music Awards, and then there's the Country Music Awards, and
that
then
doesn't make
there's,
any
like,
sense to me either. I
and
think the whole
there's a
industry.
British one thing. So it's like
I hope to
whatever.
get Brian's take on all of this too, because it would be interesting. But let's talk about Brian. Brian Dunne. He is fantastic, and became familiar with him off of Fantastic Cat. So kind of worked this backwards. Fantastic Cat was going to play Music Fest. I learned their music, fell in love with it, and was amazed to then further learn that each musician, they call it a supergroup because each one of them is an artist and a songwriter of their own right. So then I was diving in. So I got 5 next favorite bands out of just one. So like, because each one of the 4 is amazing, and then Fantastic Cat.
It's the songwriting Voltron they
It's
have
the
going.
songwriting Voltron.
It's perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is now our opportunity to honor Brian Dunne's catalog and learn about his journey.
Indeed.
And so this song off the top here is off of his brand new album that came out just last year called Loser on the Ropes. And this is one of my favorite tracks. Not my ultimate favorite. I saved that for the end. But this is a great one called Sometime After This.
In a daydream you had made arrangements for pretty flowers late after the massacre. You woke in a star to death. The Holy Ghost of town is tangled in a total mess. As the Sam Shepherd rang the early morning bells, an email from the grave. I hope this message finds you well. If there was ever any lingering doubt, oh kid, just look at where we are right now. But on the precipice, sometime after this, we'll watch the changing tides to ride this false self-righteousness, where the truth is laid.
Brian Dunne is not your grandma's antiseptic, pseudo-baby boomer singer-songwriter. Known for his laugh to keep me from crying, darkly humorous lyrics, Dunne's work reconfigures the limiting nature of the genre into something less cotton candy, young love. More burn down the banks, this DIY ethos, born from a healthy New York cynicism, self-conceptualized, funded, and dragged to every willing venue, found an easy home at Kill Rock Stars, along the likes of the Decemberists, Jeff Hansen and Sleater Kinney. Releasing his 4th album in early 2023, his first on KRS, Dunne is bending the sounds of American rock into masterfully composed, existentially poignant, wildly catchy renderings of being alive. I'll bring us back up with
I will meet you there. I will meet you there.
Welcome to the show, Brian Dunne.
Yeah, glad to be here. I haven't
Yay.
seen that video in a minute.
What's funny is, I also think you're empowering. Like, this is exactly like when I was in high school. I was like, if I ever do a video, I'm just gonna walk around a cool city, and the camera's gonna follow me around. Like, this is just, or driving the car. Like, this is, I think, like when you're like action figuring your own life. Like, this is exactly what you want. This must have been so fun to shoot.
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose, I don't know, as I'm watching it now, I went, is this about anything? Is this video about anything?
Is that New
In my
York?
mind, There's a Scorsese movie called After Hours. You guys know that movie?
Yes.
And,
Your namesake's in that.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. No relation, though.
Yeah.
But we were going for some sort of pastiche of that, and I don't know if we got any further than walking around Soho and using the same font, but alas.
What time was that when you were doing the Empty Streets?
We stayed up all night, so that's actually the last thing we filmed is me getting his breakfast sandwich from the cart. So that's probably like 5:30 in the morning.
And you were probably thrilled. You're like, thank goodness this day is over.
Yeah, it was cold too. We did it.
That's super cool though. Like I said, like this is stuff that I would be like, oh, that's exactly what I would want to do.
Yeah,
and tell us about the song.
Man.
Sometime after this.
Yeah, so sometime after this, I actually recorded on my own during the pandemic, and then kind of held it back because I thought it came out good enough that it should make a record. And it kind of became the centerpiece of Blues Are on the Ropes, which is the last record I put out through Kill Rock Stars, and I got signed off that record and publishing of this song actually. So.
Oh, very cool. And if I may, it sounds like much more. The engineering is more thought through than your prior stuff. Like I think your earlier albums, Selling Things and such, like they are definitely more singer-songwriter, almost like balladeer on the corner, and just singing to a crowd. Whereas this song sounds produced in a good way, like not in a negative comment.
No, yeah, which is funny because it's mainly self-produced. This song,
sure.
I did it with my buddy Andrew Sarlo. It's funny now that we have a little bit of hindsight with the pandemic. Is that it was such uncertain times that all the sort of like pre-existing ideas one had of themselves kind of went down the tube, and those were just I was no longer thinking about myself in a genre or as a part of a certain scene, because there was no scene. I was just a guy in a room following what I thought was interesting. I had been kind of heading in that direction a little bit. But yeah, what's funny about this song is that, even though it probably has the densest sound of anything I've released, it actually was probably the most Stonesy recording, in that it was a demo that I eventually sent around to a couple of friends, and they were like, why don't you release this? And I brought in Andrew Sarlo, and he kind of like, it was like, record a couple of these things and send them back to me. It sounds slick. It's not recorded slick at all. It's actually using very proto stuff.
But I guess maybe that was even the draw for me, is just that, the DIY of it all.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is homespun. The rest of the record is not recorded that way. We went and did the rest of the record at a studio. But there was, I don't know. I just took a shine to it. I wanted it to sound like Tunnel of Love, both Dire Straits' Tunnel of Love and Bruce Springsteen's Tunnel of Love.
Multiple tunnels of all sorts of love.
Yeah, multiple tunnels of love. Well, actually, I think the original idea I had was actually I'm trying to remember how I did it, but the original guitar part was so similar to Romeo and Juliet,
Mm-hmm.
I think I was concerned about it,
Right. Bruce is coming after you.
No, the Dire Straits one.
I got you. Yeah.
In a daydream you had made arrangements for, and then it was like a love-struck Romeo singing streets of serenade. I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about that.
And we're definitely going to get into all of these inspirations later. Have you ever done I could see you doing a medley of all three of those songs together too.
No, I try to hide my sources, man. So not to let anybody know. This is a secret, right? This is just for us.
That's true. Yeah, we're not releasing any. We didn't even start recording yet. I'm just kidding. But
how big of a concern is that when you're writing or inspired by a particular song or even just a particular genre, to hide or mask the influence?
Oh, not actually. Honestly, things are so referential these days. I probably do very little, I mean, in our modern sphere, people just straight up are like, in this day and age, it's kind of a commonality to just make them a co-writer on the song before the song's even out,
Interpolation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say in this day and age, Rod Stewart did it with Forever Young too, right? He was just like, it's a co-write with Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
But Bob was not there.
Well, now, there's 17 songwriters on every song because every drum loop and every guitar tone they get a co-write to avoid a lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I kind of think, I don't think anybody's worried about that at my
Yeah.
level. I think that anything it's an homage, and you know, if you're a tasteful songwriter, you know where the line is. Sure, I mean, there's definitely people that just, you know, put that whole hat on, and you know, okay, it's a little ham-fisted for me, but I don't worry too much about that. I've rarely ever heard something and been completely unoriginal about, you know, how it inspires me. Plus, usually there's a margin of error where you're doing a bad impression anyways.
Right.
You know,
Have you caught yourself taking a melody or something from somewhere and being like, oh crap, that's that? Because that's happened to me before. It's like, oh damn it.
Sure.
I will occasionally, if I write something that feels really familiar, I'll send it around to a couple friends and go,
Yeah.
is this already a song?
Yeah.
But all things considered, no, I don't know. I generally have so much like existential angst flying around my head that anything I'm writing is going to have like such a, in fact, sometimes when I'm writing for the band, I have to like write a little broader since we're all going to perform
Right.
it. And it can sometimes be difficult for me to take my stamp off of it, you know?
And it's such an interesting dilemma. Like, and actually this is a great topic. Like I was going to bring it up later, but we're talking about the songwriting part of it. That you really take that. I mean, it's silly to say you take it seriously. I mean, like you really enjoy the whole aspect of creation, from the songwriting, the title you pick, the sequencing of the album. It's all very important to you. And
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on that as well, because, you know, you have a process to all that.
Yeah, although it's always subject to change because you can't just do the same thing over and over.
Right.
But I think that how do I say this? There's so much BS that goes into making music these days, in that, you know, in the marketing and the social media, and I've come to enjoy certain aspects of that. I'm not a great music video maker. That's something I could get better at. But the parts that I am good at, I love to lean into, and I love thinking about a body of work and sequence and where an album sits in the body of work, because it's not hard for me to enjoy that. That's just natural.
Yeah.
That's what I love, right? That's what I love about the artists I love. I love when the fourth album is a double album, and why, you know, why
Right.
did they just have too many songs, or was it a statement? I love thinking about things like that.
Right. And
There's an art to set lists too, which I think is
totally.
that sometimes is you can show your real acumen as a performer when you have a good set list that you've thought through.
Of course, yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
it's really important. A great show doesn't really have a middle, right?
Right.
But yeah, when it comes to record making, I think about this thing that, like, when you listen to a great record, you know how you put it like a CD in your car, right?
Yep.
And when you listen to a great record and it's song, you know, you get that first song and it really pulls you in, and then you listen to the whole thing in sort of a trance. And when you're done, when the last song plays and it finishes, it'll often go back to the first song.
Yeah.
And when you've listened to a great record, there's always this feeling when you get to the first song again, where you're like, we were so much younger when we listened to that first song. We knew, we didn't know anything.
Half the things we know now.
Now we've grown so much, we've come so far together. It's almost crazy to be listening to Thunder Road again. You know?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I even heard you talk about some of the tracks on multiple different albums you have, where like, when I was writing this song, I knew it was going to be track 3, or the first one, or the closer. Like you're even as you're writing it, you know where it will actually fall in the sequencing of the album.
Yeah, again, I'm trying to be better about being open about that kind of stuff, especially because I'm one fourth of a democracy now.
Yeah.
But certain songs feel like track 1. Certain songs feel like they belong on your second album. You know, one of the reasons I'm taken with double albums is there's certain songs that can only be on a double album.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think people would have rioted if Piggies was on like a single record.
Right.
You know?
Have you looked back and wanted to change any orders after having lived with an album for a while?
I want to change everything after a while. That's sort of the impetus for making a new record, right? Like,
right.
The artist seeks to understand himself by making art, but also at a certain point, the art no longer represents you, and that's, you know, you just find you catch yourself in the wild, and you say you even see a music video you made 3 years ago and you haven't seen it in a bit, and you go, if I were to do that now, I'd do that completely differently.
Completely different, yeah.
and congratulations, you've just started working on your new music video. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I heard this too, where it's like the titling is something that you want to make sure is clever is not the right term, but that it has an aspect to it that helps kind of deliver the song to the listener. And I think the best example of that was Nighthawk, where you could have called it Every Time You Walk Away, but that wouldn't have done it justice. So Nighthawk is a word that appears like once in the second verse or something like that. And
Yeah, exactly. That's a good observation. Yeah, I guess my thinking on that is that if I have like a really sweet refrain, and when I mean sweet, like almost like a little sugary, so for some reason I felt like the every time you walk away. I guess I felt like it was a little country.
Sure.
And I felt like if I called the song Every Time You Walk Away, it would just be like pretty straight ahead. But if you didn't see it coming, then I could sort of surprise you with the sweetness.
Yes.
That's
exactly right.
And that's sort of been my thinking. There's another song called Fiona that I wrote for the band, Fantastic Cat. And that song really should be called I'm Gonna Miss You Until I'm With You Again, right?
Yes.
Because the refrain's I'm gonna miss you till I'm with you again. But what I found when we played it was if you call the song Fiona and then you hit them with the refrain, then they're surprised.
Yes.
If you call it I'm Gonna Miss You Till I'm With You Again, they're not
and you know
surprised.
what the theme of the song is about.
Yeah, I'm probably killing the marketability of my songs with that because people are just like, what is that I'm Gonna Miss You Till I'm With You song? And then they can't find it. But I don't care.
No, well, actually, nowadays...
Good for you.
Yeah, first, don't care. But secondly, that's so punk. But if you just Google search, lyric, it comes up. The people can find it.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes. I'll be in some store hearing a song that I just love and Shazam's not connecting. And then I'll go to Google because I'll be like saying, I got to remember one of these lyrics because it's the only way I'm going to find it. And it works like 75% of the time.
Okay. It's good. Good to know.
Yeah. But for again, something that's known enough, a lot of times I'm thinking I'm chasing something down that's like not even on a label and there's nothing out there and it might not. Even so, but no, that it's a brilliant songwriting, lyricism, and then the thought that goes into it all. Like, that's why I love doing a show like this, because like sometimes too, like you could just listen to this music and be like, oh, it's great for when I'm having coffee or friends over for wine and cheese. And it's like, no, there's really cool shit going on. Like, so that's what I always like to pull these out for people to really like the song even more.
Yeah, thanks. Well, that's good. Yeah, I think that's important because again, I know that there's a certain amount of people that are going to listen to your song while they're cleaning the house and they just need it to sound pretty. And then there's a certain amount of people that are going to read things into it that you never even thought,
Sure.
And, but I don't know. That's what I like. That's what I like. I've sat with many records and, fully believed that there's a message in there,
Have you gotten any cool, fan interpretations that surprised you?
Sure, all the time. And I'm always careful I never want to rebuke anything because I want it to mean what anyone wants it to mean to them. And that's what it is, right? A song's not finished until it serves somebody.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Did I hear too that and it's funny, this same topic came up with Anthony, and George was able to chime in on, because I'm not a songwriter, but this is some of the stuff that I just love learning more about, that you will sometimes change the tuning of your guitar to throw you off so that you're not on autopilot, so that you would write songs with either make mistakes to find something new.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a thing, or write on piano or just something.
That was what came up with Anthony, was writing on another instrument. Yeah.
Yeah, because and that's just, I've been playing this guitar since I was 5 years old. So I know, so it's very, and don't get me wrong, I still find inspiration in the standard tuning and all that stuff. But when you're in the middle of writing something, I'll write like a couple hundred songs, and there is a moment where you look at the guitar and you're like, you're not going to serve me at all. And then you start, because, you get, when you're in the mix, you're just writing like a crazy person. And, sometimes it feels a little bit like sinking your fishing pole into the same spot in the lake every single day and coming up with nothing. At a certain point, you're like,
or the same fish from yesterday. You're like,
you gotta try a different pole.
I threw you back and you did it again.
That was that whole REM approach where they were like, okay, we know our instruments too well, so Peter Buck's like, I'm playing mandolin. I don't know how to play mandolin. I'm playing mandolin.
Right.
And they make
It's a
you know
good
they make
move.
their best selling record. You know?
Right.
It's kind of interesting. So
Well, there was a story I heard that like Brian Eno was doing the David Bowie album, and like so Ziggy Stardust, the guitar that you hear on the recording isn't the typical guitar player. It's like the bassist or something like that, with a drummer even, because
Right.
it was so new for that person, paying
Yeah.
so much attention to getting it right, or whatever it was, or just the energy of first time.
I mean, yeah, tons of stories, right? Al Cooper playing on like Rolling Stone, or Nils Lofgren playing piano on After the Gold Rush when he's a guitar player, you know?
Oh, yeah.
right.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that, and that's sort of the ethos of the band.
Yeah. And on that point, you said you wrote it, like, it is literally that you had 200 songs to pull from for Loser on the Ropes, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
Well, it was, frankly, I was out of work, it was,
Mhm.
when the pandemic hit, my record came out like a couple weeks after the pandemic hit in 2020. And, we were all super optimistic that we were going to get back to touring quickly. And I just kind of sat there, and there was a lot going on in the world. So it was not,
It sure was.
it was not a time where I wasn't doing much thinking. So I just said, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to have the time again to sit here and write like this. So let's get to it.
That is, and then how do you process that? Like the to weed out, not this one, yes, that one, and get it down to, what that album becomes.
That was, that's usually not the hardest thing for me, but I will say that the tricky bit about that album with Loser on the Ropes was, while I was writing it, you couldn't really go road test anything.
Yeah.
Usually I'm not afraid to, when I'm solo touring, I'll open with a brand new thing that I just wrote just to feel it and feel how
Sure.
it feels. And I know right away, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The same thing that, like, when you play a friend a record before you're even done listening to it with them, you're listening to it the way they listen to it, knowing their tastes.
Yeah.
And you're kind of hearing it, and you're like, I already know that this was a mistake to play this for you.
We can
That's
stop.
like-
We're good.
It's that exact same functionality with playing songs for people, right? I can tell you 2 minutes in if I'm like, I think we've really got something here,
Sure.
or I think they're clapping because it's over,
Yes, it could be either.
So that was the bit that I was the most scared about with Loser on the Ropes, was that I hadn't had that experience. So I just had to like rest on my laurels, and my friends, I have a couple of really close friends that I bounce everything off. My buddy Ken Yates is kind of my ultimate confidant. I sent
Sure.
him everything, but it was truly made in a vacuum.
Mhm.
So I didn't have a ton of feedback the way I normally would have. And I'm glad that everybody seemed to like it.
Right.
Why that title?
Loser on the Ropes is the first song on the record.
Right.
And
But I mean, to is that standard for you in terms of having sort of the single be the first thing and be the title?
no, actually,
Or-
no.
Right.
That's,
It's the only one, right?
I think that's the first time I ever did
Yeah.
first song title track, and I think it was a single. I should know that.
So that's definitely a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just felt like that was what summed up the record.
Mhm.
Is that it's simply, if I'm going down swinging. That was the idea. And I felt that way politically, socially,
Sure.
and also just in general,
Mhm.
what it feels like to be a working class musician.
Yeah, a performer in shuttered venues time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And even that song, to that same point we were making earlier, that one could have been called I'm Not Scared of You, but you would lose the effect of the hit of that when it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I tend to do that. That's pretty intentional. Occasionally I'll lose the argument with myself and go, it's called
Right.
But,
It's
yeah.
called what it should be, but or what it easily could be. But I like what you're doing.
But I like titles. I
Yeah.
say, do judge a book by its cover. It's an
Mhm.
important part of the process.
Yes. Yeah. So you mentioned, we always love on this show to go back to the beginning. You mentioned already that you've been playing the guitar since you were 5. Is it literally that guitar, or did you mean just a guitar?
No, I've had this
Okay.
guitar. This is just a junker guitar, because I am, full transparency, at my parents' house right now picking up my cat. But No, I had like a little nylon string guitar that my folks got me when I was 5 because your fingers are soft,
Yep.
And I started taking guitar lessons, and then I ended up working at the guitar shop that I took guitar lessons at, and I would just, as soon as I got paid a couple times, I'd buy a guitar.
Yeah.
So I had like all these junky like $100 and $200 guitars because I just never could take my money home with me.
Yeah, right. No, but
What was the first chord you
great.
learned? Was it a D or an E or what? Like what?
I mean, I don't
remember?
know. It's probably like 3 blind mice, Like it probably wasn't even a chord, because
Right.
I still find whenever I pick a guitar up, I play a D because that was literally the first chord I learned.
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
did.
It's just you have to like it doesn't matter D. It's like
Yeah,
home
one
base.
weird thing about playing the guitar is that I've known how to play the guitar for so long that I don't remember learning it. So it doesn't necessarily give
That's
me.
yeah, right. That makes sense.
My roommate in college was so great at he could just pick up instruments because he remembered the process of learning. I was such a kid that like to my knowledge, I've always known how to play the guitar.
Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see how that would then cost you process. Like you just know this instrument inside and out almost to your core.
Yeah, absolutely. I've taught myself a little bit of everything else, but by necessity. But I don't really remember.
You even had to play the drums for Fantastic Cat.
I do play. Yes, that is a process.
Yeah, George, I think we talked about it last time, and we even have a little of a clip here for tonight. But they literally change instruments after every song, and it's
great,
and including the drums. It's just
yeah.
I loved the joke. I saw you guys play at World Cafe Live in December. And someone was like, please hit the merch table on the way out because we can then afford to buy a proper drummer for our next show.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I know. It's just
I wanted to make a t-shirt that says no drummers allowed.
Right. So let's keep talking about the younger years. So 5, you're taking guitar lessons, and then you kind of get into songwriting at a young age, and even just obviously learning some of the key covers. And your parents are super supportive this whole time and even take you to open mics at Boodle's Opera House.
Oh, yeah. Is that in my bio? Wow.
Yeah. No. I go on deep searches.
Oh, you're
for
doing
these
a
things.
deep dive. Yeah. Boodle's Opera House. It's not there anymore. It's like, I want to say it was like a 150-seat club in Chester, New York. I grew up in a town upstate that's not like the cool, crunchy upstate that you might think of, like if you think of like the band or Dylan and all that stuff. But it is kind of in theory between the city and that. So,
Sure.
Like when I was like 13, I saw Levon at that place. Like he couldn't sing at the time. That's why they were booking him in tiny little places and things like that. So it was like culturally, it's sort of like I grew up in a dead zone between two very fertile areas, which I think can be a very healthy thing because it's boring, but you also kind of have like eyes into the window of what's actually happening. And so, yeah, that place was really fun and cool. And I shudder to think what I would have played at those open mics. But yeah, no, my folks are, they're children of the 50s and 60s. So written into their DNA is a certain amount of love for the troubadour singer-songwriter. So I didn't necessarily have that. There wasn't a whole lot of like, but what are you going to do for money in my house, which was great because I still would have done it.
Right. Yeah. And then that moves on to college where you go to Berklee College of Music. And what's funny is this is actually my 3rd episode in a row of a Berklee graduate.
Really?
Yeah.
Who else?
2 weeks ago, Meg Elzier, she's now in Nashville, more recent graduate. But then it's not released yet, but I'm putting together an interview with Damn Tall Buildings.
Okay.
And so all 3 of them met at Berklee. And they are, since like 2012, they've been a touring band for more of a bluegrass style. But
yeah.
Very
cool.
So it's just so funny that like I don't know that I don't know if you heard off the top, this is our 150th episode.
Wow.
For this show, and I don't know that I had a Berklee grad until recently, and now I've gotten 3 straight. But that's pretty funny. But anyway, so what did you major when you were there? Because I understand there's some really, really cool majors like, songwriting to music therapy to technology and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, my major was professional music.
Nice. Well,
which
listen,
is like,
yeah.
it's the broadest thing you could major in.
Yeah. But it's a hard school to get into, so it's still quite a feat, to get in, to graduate. Like, it's all really, really high accomplishment.
I suppose so. My take on it was I was very grateful to be there. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship like on a whim. I hadn't applied, and I was given a scholarship to the school, and I had to ask, like, I'm like, what is this for? And they were like, for the school, and I was like, but I haven't applied. And they were like, well, I guess you're in. And I was like, okay, because I don't know what my plan was if I was just going to move to New York. And I had my reservations about music school as a concept. But ultimately, I think early on I realized I was very lucky. I was definitely like I could just like on a class level, I was lucky to be in such like a fanciful, like, art school is such like such a luxury. No one needs to go to that. And I could feel that. And then ultimately what I would say is that I was really grateful I learned a lot, and I was able to incubate, and I was able to fail in a space that wasn't going to destroy me. Because so as somebody has said before, you can never be too late, but you can be too early.
Yeah.
And lastly, the thing I didn't know when I got to New York is I didn't realize how in the modern age everyone is not everyone, but a lot of people are very well connected. And ever since things changed in the early 2000s when Napster came into vogue and the bigger labels kind of, we all thought it's going to be great. These fat cats are going away, and it's just going to be like a DIY punk scene. Unfortunately, what also is true about that is who better to DIY it than somebody with a lot of resources and a lot of connections. And what you wind up with is, it's a bit of a stacked game in that you're competing with people for space who are coming to the party with full budgets and, proper resources. And a little bit of that mythos of like the classic, taking the bus to New York with your guitar on your back. It's like, I don't even know if it would work that way in the modern age, if those people that we admire so much would be successful. So I was very grateful to at least have a community of people that I knew from that school that were also in New York or LA or Nashville, because I think otherwise I would have just been like lost.
Sure. Yeah, that was very true.
I'm just to interrupt. Have you two watched the Dylan film? The Dylan?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you seen it, Philip?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
It's been traveling, so
I was pretty impressed with it. I thought it was pretty cool.
This one I've heard is nothing but great things.
Yeah. No spoilers, but he does pretty well for himself.
He does pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yes. With the hesitation to go to school for music, that came up with Damn Tall Buildings as well, where there was this like hesitation to say, if I go to studying songwriting, it's going to take all of the emotion out of the writing and turn it into a mechanical act. Now, that they found kind of like the pocket of like, when I need to write, I can turn the emotion off and still write a song, but I'm not going to lose it totally. I can still pull it in. So like they learned what they needed to learn, but it was just interesting that they had that same hesitation at start too.
Yeah, it's a thing of like, and that is the concern, right? That is, you don't want to you're afraid to become a music robot. I don't think that really happens. I think that, it's the way that people who are scientists can still be spiritual. Like it just gets pushed like one level back, where we still don't know where ideas come from. Like they don't, they're not sort of like, they're not teaching you to like, thin out your celestial. I don't know.
Yeah.
The Sistine Chapel was a commission.
Right.
Remember that.
Right.
People forget that sometimes. You got to get paid for the thing, and you got to have a workman's approach to it sometimes. But it doesn't take the majesty out of what you can bring to a project. So yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too about Berkeley, it's funny because I feel like in the cultural sphere, it's seen as like the way like there's a couple of schools that people will make a meal out of, right? And I think that's
Mhm.
also why people are a little shy about it, right? Where if you go to Harvard, people will call you a Harvard guy for like the
Mhm.
rest of your life.
Yep.
Even though school's so funny because you go like I went to school there. I was 17. You know, I was like a
Right.
child.
4 years of your life.
Yeah, I was, but I think I was done before I could legally drink alcohol. You know, and so it was like, you know, it's like going to camp or something.
Yep.
But there's a couple of things that, you know, follow people around, and Berkeley's definitely one of them. But what's funny about it is that, like, it's not that, it's a pretty loose, it's kind of like a hang,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like it would often be like there would be people around and you'd be like, is this guy go here, or is he just like hanging out, you know? It's not as like it's not like Juilliard or something. It's
Sure.
not like it's a jazz conservatory, but also like you can do whatever you want there.
Yeah. And so you mentioned Ken, who you met there, right?
Yeah.
And then another student is Liz Longley.
Yeah,
Who
who's
you-
also one of my best pals.
Yeah. And so there was this cool moment that I wanted you to touch on where she came to class one time writing the song When You've Got Trouble.
Mhm.
And you shared that it was like a wake up for you to like that if that's how good I need to be, I got to go back home and really get good at this.
Absolutely. It was actually, yes, it was at a I don't know, have you guys know that song?
I just knew the story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's this thing we all do when still to this day where when you're like being competitive or something in music, where you'll see somebody doing something and you'll go, well, you know, it's sort of like, and they're doing it well. It happens when you're watching like the Grammys last night, and you'll go, okay, well, that's like a different thing than I do, you know, and that's how you like figure out how to sleep at night. And I remember I walked into the room. It wasn't in a class though. It was in a show. She was having a show in a room that we were having class, and she had just written this song and she played it. And I remember like every bone in my body was trying to be like, well, it's different because. And then I was like, it's not. She has 6 strings and a song. I have 6 strings and a song, and I don't have anything that could hold a room like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one song that could just be played that way and capture the hearts and minds. And I mean, you know, it wasn't Paradise City. It was just probably 50 of us in the room, but there was not a single person in the room that didn't think, wow, that's a great song.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I just knew, I was like, I have to, that's the level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could say, oh, you know, I don't want to be a solo guy. I want to be a band guy, or I'm more of a this kind of sound, or whatever. A song's a song.
Do you think she recognized that?
I think she knew she had a good song on her hands. Because we told her.
Right.
But still, sometimes, you know, like when you're in the middle of it, or you're delivering it for some art. I know for a lot of artists, it's always like, is this any good? Is this
sure? I'm sure,
cool?
but I think she knew.
Know?
I think she knew she had her.
That's
best
nice.
song.
Cool.
Sure.
I think she would still say that. I think it's a really special song.
Yeah.
Now you're talking there a little bit about, and I hope you're okay with us diving into this. You're talking there a little bit about an inner critic who's saying to you, you got to be better. From what I've heard, you also can have that almost swing in the other direction, where you'll be very hard on yourself and almost, you know, struggle to let something come out.
Yeah, I think that all within reason. I think that sure, but I don't know. At this point, I've released a lot of stuff, so
Sure. Right.
I guess all in all, as intense as that feels, sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I seem to always put out the record. So
Right.
Yeah, I think that's natural, though. I think I've high standards, and I want to live up to them.
Yeah. I think every artist or creative will always have that inner critic saying you're not done yet, or, you know, that's not good enough, start over or whatever. So that's definitely true. But like on this show, we also know that there is, you know, but we have a whole dedicated event called Listen to the Dissonance. That's all about mental health and making sure that people are doing okay and being in a healthy space about that. So I always like to touch on that because I think it's very easily out of balance if you're on track.
Well, I guess what I would say is I'm 35 now, and I've definitely really struggled over the last 15 years, you know, because it really does drive you crazy.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure.
love this job so much. But there have been times where it has driven me to the brink of insanity. And of course, you always think it's going to be like the cute insanity where you're just like, oh, I'm just looking for that great song. And I'm like dressed in cool jeans and I'm like skinny and like, you know, maybe a little drunk or I don't know, like some
walking around
romantic version.
Soho at midnight. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. But being actually insane, well, like it's not awesome. And you don't actually get any good work done because you're just, your head's up your ass, you know?
Right.
And where I'm trying to get to these days is there is a certain level of dissatisfaction I'm always going to have because I want to be understood and I want to understand myself, but that's a moving target. So the second I'm done with something, I feel complete for about 6 hours, and then already I'm like, should I don't know. You know, there's a certain amount of indecision. I'm working on a record right now. And of course I've arrived at it's done. It's in the can. We have to remix a couple of things, but it's done. It's mastered. And now I'm like, I can't listen to this anymore. I can't even, I've stared myself blind, you know?
Right.
But I understand I've done this now enough times to know that's natural. And what will happen is I'll make the next record. And then I'll go back and listen to this record. And then I'll be like, you know, that was pretty good.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So you're currently right now enjoying selling things, is I guess based on that.
I think selling things,
logic.
yeah. I think we really nailed it.
Which is all of this stuff is amazing. It's you've got such a knack for the songwriting and like we talked off the top, the lyrics and the full performance and everything. I wanted to touch on, so also the physical side. So you're in your 20s, I guess you graduate and you start to sing, but you're not singing properly. And you had to take time off because you had you need to have surgery to repair some hemorrhaging going on in your... Yeah,
that was so crazy. I'm glad that happened young because, you know what, honestly, there was more to it than that. And I was singing a lot of material that I could basically, when I moved to New York, I just couldn't get arrested, you know? And I was taking side gigs in cover bands, but I also was like affecting my voice a lot and trying to be something, trying to sound differently than I sounded. You know, I wanted to be a certain type of thing that I wasn't. A slightly huskier sounding, tougher sounding. I think I just wanted to overall be a tougher person than I was. And when I just started losing my voice all the time, and which is very strange. And when I had to have the surgery, and there's this woman who helped me recuperate. She's like a vocal therapist. They make you do this because you can't talk for a little while. And she was actually really helpful to me because she was essentially like, stop trying to sing. Your voice is fine the way it is, and it's healthy the way it is. Stop trying to sing like somebody else. But we also, in that was the conversation of like, why do you want to sound like somebody else? And it really was like, it was almost like the world forcing me to get good with
who you are. Your genuine self. Yeah.
Right. I'm not Bruce Springsteen. I am Brian Dunne. And that is what it is.
But thank goodness for that. Like you said, it happened early enough that you could let that go.
Yeah, and I think it set me on a better path. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope maybe there was a big hit song for me singing like. But,
right. But I definitely wanted to bring in some music here. So we're going to jump forward a little bit in the story here, because the song I want to bring on is "New Tattoo," which was, if we go back an album or two, it was one of the 200 that got cut. Like it didn't make the album.
Yeah.
And then you got this film crew that shows up at a Michigan gig somewhere. And if you could just tell the front end of that story before we get to the other part of how it makes it big, and then we'll play a little bit of it and we can then talk about it. But talk it like you're just at a sound check in Michigan and a film crew says, can we film you?
Yeah, I'd written this song and I was working with this guy, Andrew Sarlo, who's a good friend and great producer. He produced all the Big Thief records and a bunch of great stuff for Matty Diaz and Courtney Marie Andrews. And I'd sent him this song that I was working on at the time. It kind of sounded like, it was pretty straight ahead. It was like, you got a new tattoo. Almost like, like Sister Golden Hair or something like.
Right.
Something like that. And he was like, I don't know, man. Like, it's like not really doing it for me. And then I worked up another version that I was like, well, what if it's like a 50s song? Like, you got a new tattoo. Something like that.
Right.
And he was like, I don't know. And so I was just like, I mean, I try to be pretty egoless when it's songwriting because I don't know. We're just trying to figure out what makes the cage bird sing. So if my producer and my friends are my audience at that particular moment, they don't like something, I'll just go write something else.
Right.
But I went to the show and I had this film crew was there, and they were like, "Hey, you got a song?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I don't want to burn one that's going to be on the record. So this is like an outtake. I just play it." And that was exactly what the recording.
And so that's what I'm about to play off your YouTube channel. This is that recording.
This is that performance.
This is that yeah.
It's a video of that performance.
Let's let it play, and then the back end of this story is amazing.
Sure.
You're gonna love this, George.
You got a new tattoo, and you bought a nice pair of shoes to remind you you used to be when life was something brand new. 'Cause now you sleep a little lighter at night, and you wake up when the sky gets alight, and crawl into the kitchen at dawn and tell yourself it's alright. You swore you didn't want strings attached and to be tethered to the telephone, but now there's no one here to talk to, and you prefer to sleep alone. All the chances that you couldn't take, mistakes that you couldn't afford to make, well, what would it have cost you? When you had a new tattoo and you were only 22.
So it's so, raw and cool glass of water, and it's gorgeous.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't know. It's funny. I think it's a nice song. I don't know why this became my most popular song. I think it's a good song, but I think, I don't know. Maybe people just want to hear you with just a guitar, or
sure.
Maybe people liked my hat. I don't really know.
But
it once again shows that idea, that underlying idea that like nobody knows what works.
Yeah,
Like
I'll say this
nobody
too,
ever knows.
So I'll always, whenever I'm researching for an interview, when I'm just making dinner, or again, my wife and I just drinking coffee on a Sunday morning, I'll always have whoever I'm, interviewing kind of on in the background. And this song came on. She's like, "Oh wait, I like this one." Like, and I hadn't even told her any of the stories yet. So it's like,
Yeah.
it catches people's ears in a very, very it must be something about just the sheer genuine rawness of it. And I have to think.
I don't know. It's a story that is very much at the basis of the songwriting I was sort of moving towards and have moved towards since, subject matter wise, where it's sort of a song about how our insecurities manifest in different ways, and as a new generation that's getting older, it won't quite look like our parents, but it's kind of the same mechanism. No one gets out of here alive,
Yeah.
So this song, in theory, I was using the tattoo as an idea of a representation of something that you used to feel confident and secure about, and now represents a level of desperation and insecurity.
Almost like the midlife crisis of the modern age.
It's absolutely what it's about.
Yeah. And so here's the story moves to, I guess you get either a call or a text from your friend to say, "Are you sitting down?" Because this is now like the #1 song in the Netherlands out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It went to #2 in the Netherlands. It's a very bizarre.
Those Dutch, man.
It was just a very strange
wooden
thing.
shoes. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I wish TikTok was around when this song came out.
Wow,
Probably would have been able to do something with it. Yeah, it was just one of those things. Here in the States, what happened was right away, XM Radio picked it up. It had a nice little run, got some love. People started showing up to my shows, and then kind of that was that. People just liked that song. Had like 500,000 streams. It was doing okay, but nothing to write home about. Just people liked the song. I put out the next record, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, so it kind of took a hit, but it was okay, And then 2021, a DJ, an artist who had a radio show, picked it up, started playing it on the show. The station liked it. The station picked it up. Then all the other stations picked it up, and then they flew me over to do like TV and do late night. I played an arena with him. We did it was like a 17,000 seat arena. It's still a pretty popular song over there. I still tour over there, and it's been I wasn't able to it's such a strange thing because it's a departure song for me. So
Sure.
At the time, and it was 3 years after it had come out, so I had an album in the can that sounded absolutely nothing like it. So I'm sure they were like, well, just give us another one of those. And I was like, I have a different thing going on.
Yeah, sorry, fellas. It's yeah. But yeah, that is now, but what, just a single? It's not on any album.
Not on any album. I should have put it on Selling Things, though. Would have sold a few more copies.
Well, it's kind of cool this way, at least. I like the way that it tracks out. I guess let me play this other, to your point about it's a departure song. Let's play this other kind of sound that you have. I really love this song. That's another, and the video's amazing. It's off the more recent release. It's called "It's a Miracle." And it's a little bit more of that rockier side of the Brian Dunne experience. So let's put this one out there just so you have a little bit of the yin and yang of what's going on. And it's got an opening kind of montage here. In case you're listening on the podcast, you're going to want to check this video out. It's really, really funny.
How the hell were you to know they expected you to drive? You were halfway in a coma, but you made it home alive. These are difficult days. It's a miracle, babe, that we got anything left to piss away. Father's Day had come and gone, and you forgot to call your mom and thank her for the double shift, the reason you even exist. Well, those were difficult days. It's a miracle, babe, that we got anything left to piss away. Little child in a candy aisle.
Man, I cannot watch my acting. It's so funny to be like, I'm not even doing anything in this video. I'm just singing the song, and I'm like, why do I look like I'm in a school play?
No, listen, I also love the I guess syncopation of the chorus, whatever. I think it's really cool. Not only now we're into the way you orchestrated the lyrics being delivered. I think it's just really neat stuff.
Yeah, thanks. My buddy Jen directed this. She's fabulous. She directed a video for Cat too, and she's just like a wonderful person, and she helped me through this because I am not an actor. I basically can only do videos where things happen around me. Otherwise, when we're getting ready to make some videos for the next record, I was like, I just have to be straight faced to camera, sing the song, and we can let weird things happen in general vicinity.
Someone else will do the acting. No, it's awesome. I mean, again, and the sound is great. I love this track.
Yeah, this was a song I was like, I think I got a banger here. I think I got a single. It didn't change my life here, but I thought I was like, I think we got an indie rock classic here.
Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on, and the funny thing was, this came up during the Anthony interview as well, that the first person he saw perform that made him want to be a musician was Bruce Springsteen.
Sure, yeah.
And from what I understand from your story, you might even be more of a fanatic about Bruce than even he was, as far as him being an inspiration to you in wanting to be a singer-songwriter of that type.
Yes, I do best Anthony on that. But yeah, I mean, we live here in the Bruce Belt,
Certainly.
It is written into the DNA, but no, there's a shared spirit there, and I think that's what's funny about both me and Anthony is Anthony's born in 88, I'm born in 89, so we were growing up in the 90s, and Bruce was kind of out of step with the culture in the 90s, right? Like, it wasn't like like rock music when I was a kid was not. I wouldn't say it was dated. It was just one generation earlier. The Bruce records, because like what was super in vogue was like Nirvana and
Sure.
Pearl Jam and then later on some more like slightly more like irreverent stuff like Green Day or that was what kids were listening to. But my parents had a copy of The River, and I just never got over it, and
Never got over it.
I never got over it, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like, if there's a true story, not a true story, but like a literal story that correlates to this, or were you just being kind of funny? But I heard you mention at one point that you're pretty sure at a young age you died and got reincarnated at a Bruce show.
I kind of do believe that because I was so into Bruce at such a young age. And I could probably dig up, like, there's all right, this is the weirdest one, is that the Bruce Springsteen MTV Unplugged, where he played with the other band, not the E Street Band, aired in 1992. And I have it on a video cassette, and I wrote on it in crayon, like everything's spelled wrong.
Right.
Like the B is backwards.
Fantastic.
And I'm like, I would have been 3 years old.
Right.
And I remember watching that nonstop. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So I don't know, man. It's weird. I'm not like a particularly mystical person, but that part of my life is weird.
There was some things going on. And then if I want to bring this up here, this is your Instagram page. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is if I come down here, you were recently on stage together.
Yeah.
So
that was last week.
You took this picture. And then this is all of you, I guess, on stage after the performance.
Yeah. We, yeah.
Is that the first time you got to play with him?
This is the first time, yeah, kind of. I met him briefly at the same function in 2020.
And here's you probably learning to play.
No, I think that's a Beatles book. But
okay.
I've got if I went way super deep, I could probably find you a picture somewhere.
Awesome.
Probably archived, but.
But so that's the first time you were on stage with him. That had to be like.
Yeah, 2020 we met him briefly right before the pandemic, and I talked to him. I told him he made my entire life meaningful, and Anthony was like, "Dude, be cool."
Well, because he's had a couple opportunities through like the Light of Day Foundation. He shared that when he was on, where for him it's probably a third or fourth time, so he's probably like, "Yeah, it's the boss, whatever."
Yeah, exactly. But this was the first time he ever watched our set. He was standing side stage for our set, and man, it was fucking crazy.
I'm sure.
Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on this.
Yeah, you can. I'm sure that was wild.
Yeah, it was great. An amazing night, and he put on a killer show at the end of that thing. Again, like it's a classic thing. Every time, I don't know why I'm surprised. I've seen him so many times. But at the end of the night, he strapped on a Telecaster and counted into Darkness on the Edge of Town with the Joker Shecky and the House Rockers, the band he always plays with that thing. And it just like 3 seconds in, I'm like, this is it for me, man.
Right.
This is it.
I'm fading away again.
This is the sound of my soul.
Oh, that is so great.
What would you tell that 9 or 8 year old self watching that ragged VHS of?
I'd say, yeah. Well, man, I don't know. I'd say I don't think I'd tell him anything. I'd just keep going. Don't mess anything up.
Right.
Yeah.
Persist.
Maybe don't sing like that in your 20s, but other than that,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but no, just very cool. And when I saw that you were on stage with him after knowing what I knew here, I was like, oh my gosh, that might have been so cool for him.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So you had said that you might be able to play a song today.
Yeah, let me play his tune.
Yeah, and I thought it was a cool one to pick because off the top we were doing that like quick little bio where you're in your words you're an eternal optimist, and there's this song called Optimist.
Yeah, I was thinking about how around the time that I wrote this song, I was in I don't want to say I just turned 30, but I was like, like having that sort of reassessment of just my 20s and all the things I'd gone through and how so many of these phases we're meant to dance around this fact that I think I'm probably just an optimist, and I'm just very bad at it, and I just keep falling off. I keep falling off for years at a time, but I think at the core of it is probably that I'm an optimist. So that's what this song's about. It's called Optimist.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll have you take center stage here, and we will enjoy.
Cool. Here we go. Someone wild, someone mad, someday hardened in the aftermath. And for a while I wasn't sure what to do. Maybe I soon had joined them too. 60 miles from where I was, there was an air apparent, and I caught a bus. Laid back and laughed for a minute or two. Just what more can you do? I thought I was Schopenhauer for a little bit, but it didn't hold. See, it's like a sign on a sidewalk sale. Everything must go. Now I'm trying to shake out of the shape I'm in, trying to believe and believe. And I'm trying to make friends with my life again, but it's harder than it used to be. So work hard and you get somewhere. Buy a car, buy underwear. Put a little bit away for the days of dark despair. So I sat and I analyzed my pace and I agonized. I got puts out of my mind, pretending I didn't care. And thought it was Nietzsche for at least 3 hours, but it didn't help. See, it turns out no one needs me to make a fool of myself. Now I'm trying to shake out of the shape I'm in, trying to believe and believe. And I'm trying to make friends with my life again, but it's harder than it used to be. I'm trying to find a way to be an optimist, searching on my hands and knees. See a cold, calloused heart, seen a lot, I guess, and it's harder than it used to be. Man, it's harder than it used to be. And I was angry for a little bit, but it didn't last. 'Cause no matter what you've done to your life, everything must pass. So I'm trying to shake out of the shape I'm in, trying to believe and believe. And I'm trying to make friends with my life again, but it's harder than it used to be. I'm trying to find a way to be an optimist, searching on my hands and knees. Well, I think there was a time when it seemed obvious, but it's harder than it used to be. Oh man, it's harder than it used to be.
You're here.
Thanks.
You're here. No shit.
That was excellent. Thank you so much. We always are so honored when people will perform and regale us with song. I love that track, and on the recording, this was a cool kind of like cross section for myself. Lizzie No is on the vocals on that track.
Yeah,
and one of the
Lizzie's
one of the podcasts that I downloaded was Basic Folk, and you were on a guest on it. So like, and they do a great job. What a fun like little production they have. I thought that was great.
Lizzie's she's a multi-talent.
Yeah. That was super cool. So people should check out the Basic Folk podcast. Shout out to Lizzie No. But awesome there, and so we figured we want to make sure we. And we also should mention, in addition to Bruce Springsteen, you also have lots of other heroes. Right on your arm there is Elvis, and lots of other cool other performers there. So there's great stuff there that are kind of like your inspirations. But we want to get to the inspirational Fantastic Cat. So I guess the best first question to ask is how did it come along? How was the opportunity kind of brought to you? And kind of, again, there's the funniness, the humor that goes into Fantastic Cat, while having nothing be a comedic song, really. I mean, it's all legitimately written music, but wrapped in hilarious just comedy. It's just so great what you guys are doing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Ant pulled me in on it. They were putting together the thing. I think I was the last guy brought in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been great. You learn to hold it loosely, because it was a joke that people took to, and it's just a reflection of our sort of comedic and musical sensibilities. And so you realize, if there's one thing I've learned, it's what's worked for me is being a little less in my head and just being willing to let it rip.
But yeah, some of the other components, we already talked about, that the songwriting is shared, the instrumentation is shared, the people are switching back and forth. But my favorite part is that on the stage is a countdown to when you will be eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yep, that's true. That is true.
And came on the rock boat for the tour you were just on. I saw it was all packaged up nice and safe.
Yep.
But I think that is hilarious. That's just so great.
So, Brian, I asked this of Anthony. I'm going to ask you the same question. Who is the most underrated in Fantastic Cat?
Who's the most underrated?
Yes.
I thought we were all rated properly. No one's underrated.
It's a good answer.
Yes.
I believe Anthony said he was the most underrated, right? Is that right?
No, what he said was he was the best, and he's the most properly rated as the best.
Okay. Is that, yeah.
Oh, is that what the general consensus is? Okay, well,
so far, that was his answer. Now we've got yours.
All right.
We'll see what the rest say. But I wanted to share just this other music because, like I said, I kind of happened to learn about each of your individual catalogs by getting to you through the Fantastic Cat music. And I'm sure that's actually happening quite a bit now because you're on quite a tear. You've been on CBS Morning Show and touring the rock, having great tours, very successful tours.
Yeah.
And in fact, it seems like you're touring more as Fantastic Cat than anything right now.
I mean, people are really interested in coming out and seeing the band, and on some level, that's always what I've wanted to do as a live performer. I've always felt like the records are these intimate experiences, and where you're having a personal one-to-one connection, but then the show should be church. And don't get me wrong, I love solo performing as well. That's just a different vehicle. So I think for all of us, it's a bit of we're all having a bit of a renaissance being in a band and in a van, and the shows being these big, sweaty, fun, exciting performances. Right. It's just the best.
Yeah. And so we're bringing on a different song, that kind of fits the vibe of the person who we're currently interviewing. And the one that I picked for the Fantastic Cat song for Brian Dunne was Later On. So anything you want to share about this track?
Yeah, this is just a song I wrote for the band. I wrote it in this little rehearsal space underneath the record shop in my neighborhood in Brooklyn. And it's a multi-singer, which is a thing we do in the band where everybody sings. So we have Mike takes the second verse, and it's this type of it sort of fits into this vein of song that I like to write, where the verses are these existential questions, and the choruses are sort of the declaration of devotion.
Sure.
That centers those sort of existential musics. I don't know. It's probably better if you just play it.
Sure. Let's hit it. And then you also typically start your videos with Fantastic Cat with some comedy. So there is some humor at the beginning here, but enjoy Later On by Fantastic
I apologize
Cat.
for this particular joke.
You're watching the Poconos Music Station, PMS, broadcasting Eastern Pennsylvania's finest music videos 24 hours a day, 7 days a year.
I'll save a seat next to me for the long ride home. And late at night, when the world is quiet, at least you'll know in the afterglow you're not alone. Isn't it just madness, the life we made? Chaos every second now, and big mistakes. I don't wanna be who they want me to be, and nobody sees me the way that I see me, like you see me. Later on, when they've all gone, I'll save a seat next to me for the long ride home. And late at night, when the world is quiet,
It's just such great music. There's no other way to put it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. And like you said, so that's Mike Montali. He is also in the band Hollis Brown. Anthony D'Amato solo, and then Dan DeLego on the drums back there. And the cat faces designed by Anthony's wife.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Such a great, like, it's such a, like the joy that you all have on stage is so infectious to the crowd. So when I've seen you play, it's like, not only is this music amazing, but just the energy you're bringing out there is just so fun. It's like you just want to be a part of it.
Yeah, you know, it's we've just sort of fallen backwards into the whole thing. It was such a, when we played our first couple shows, it was just such a normal reaction to, we were coming out of the pandemic. We'd always played solo. I think all of us were just excited to be in a band. It wasn't boring. I love playing solo, but you know, 200 solo acoustic gigs, you start to feel like, oh my God, do I work in an art museum? You know?
But really great stuff.
How fast do you know when you're writing a song it's a Fantastic Cat song or a solo song?
Not always from the top, but generally speaking, how I feel about it from my own personal take is sometimes I'm writing to the sound of the band. Other times I'm thinking about sort of like, is this idea fully cooked, or could I use some help? You know what I mean?
Right.
And generally, if I don't want any input, if I feel like it's a complete thought, that's exactly what I want to say. Those are the ones I keep for myself. And if there's just, I can generally sense if there's something I'm like, I don't know, I need other eyes or hands on this.
Okay.
That's where that is. That's how that goes.
What a nice resource then to have. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so to speak to some of the comedy, but also to share the albums, the first album you released is called The Very Best of Fantastic Cat. And from what I understand, that one was more what you had probably had written solo that you thought could be brought to the band.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the second album, which was called Now That's What I Call Fantastic Cat, was more collaborative in nature, because now you knew each other's strengths and you know, benefits.
Yeah, you just simply hear us finding the sound of the band. The first record is mostly us playing on each other's solo material. The second album is us writing for the sound of a band.
Yeah, which again, both are amazing albums. Like, you have to check both of them out. But
thanks.
Yeah, there was one other track. I'm going to bring in a second Fantastic Cat song for the Brian Dunne experience, because I thought this one is just so fun. And when I saw it live, I was like, oh my God, let me go grab a live version of this song. And so let me just play it here, and then you can speak to it. I'll bring it down. Here is Go All Night.
That's it!
Oh, a lot from the Q bus.
That's right. Just so fun.
Thanks, man. That's a funny performance you picked because the reason I keep looking back at my amp is because Mike turned it up on the last song.
Right.
This is a performance from Leiden, Netherlands.
Oh, there we go.
And Mike turned the amp up, and it was so loud. And I was gonna go, and the reason you keep seeing me look back is I'm trying to negotiate in between the lines.
If you can make it in time.
Down, and I can't. That's why I keep looking like I'm not like moving around a lot because I'm like I'm gonna run back there and try to turn it down.
Did he do it on purpose, or was it for his song?
No, it was for he had played the last song. He was really ripping it, so he just cranked it. But when I got over there, I was like, yeah, it was a funny show.
I think we need an entire subgenre to how awful Guitar Center is.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you.
That
I've
is
never
another-
worked at a Guitar Center, but I wanted to put it in a song.
Here, here.
And now we can watch Shred a solo. What a cool guitar too! Like when I was watching, I was like, "That is such a unique axe."
Yeah, it's a Gino Doheny. It's like their jazz master.
Okay.
I just wanted something that nobody else had.
Yeah, no, and it worked. Like I was just like, "What? I want to know about that."
Yeah, it's a great guitar.
Yeah. But super awesome song, and definitely want to check out Fantastic Cat if you can see them live. Brian Dunne when you can see him live. What's coming up this year? Like, what do you got planned on either sides of that?
Well, we got a lot of stuff happening. We're going to make a new Fantastic Cat record, and I've got a record coming out, and we got a lot of touring that's about to be announced. We got a summer tour, or spring tour that's already announced, and then I'm going to go out on the road solo for a little bit, and then we're going to do a big summer band tour, and there's a lot.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I have my fingers crossed. So when the way I was even introduced to Fantastic Cat was through our festival here, Music Fest.
Yeah.
And I showed up super pumped for that performance, and it got rained out. It was pouring that night.
Mm-hmm.
So was not able to see it then. Now since then I've been able to see you, but I hope that that gets rescheduled. I hope you get to play.
I do too. I love that
Music
festival. I've
festival.
played it solo before, but I'm
neat.
really looking forward to it. So
Yeah. But Brian Dunne, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your music. And we are going to play one more, like I was saying. Like my favorite track off your album is Something to Live For. So anything you can just share real quick about that so that after the credits, people can be riveted.
yeah, this is actually the first song I wrote for Loser on the Ropes. And, it's just a song about living through difficult times and coming out the other side of them. But I'm glad you picked the song. I've always had a fondness for this song, and no one ever picks it because it's the very last song on the album.
Yeah, no, it's always like whenever I'm doing what I had mentioned before, where it's either on like a shuffle of the artist or just like straight through their albums. There's always one that's I have to like it catches my ears, and I'm like I got to go back to the beginning of this one and just sit here and listen. And that's the one that did it for me.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Brian. This was great. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely, George.
How great,
right?
I love the Netherlands collection too. It's just that the randomness of like this crazy business. It's just so great. It's so cool.
And again, like to the whole point of like that wasn't even a song that was picked to be on that album.
Right. Again, that pushing that fact of like nobody knows what the hell's going on. Like he played it for his friends, and they were like, "Yeah, it's like
yes."
And
then it just
and then it's like
eardrum after eardrum.
I love
after
it. I love it. And what a sweet, talented cat, as it were.
Pun intended.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are now 50% done with these Fantastic Cats. I can't wait to keep going. Like these two. And again, thank you for joining. I hope that we can continue to coordinate these so that you can be the co-host for all of them.
If the check's
all right,
clear,
Phil, let's say goodbye to everybody.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Your Next Favorite Band. We'd like to sincerely thank Brian Dunne of Brian Dunne, as well as Fantastic Cat, for coming on the show and sharing all the stories, performing, love the performance, providing all of the backstories of all the tracks we talked about, and getting into some of the other aspects of the songwriting process, and sometimes how the inner critic can get either in the way or motivate you. So it was really the full Megillah there was pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
There'll be links in the show notes to Brian Dunne's information and the Fantastic Cats information, and we want to recommend that you give them a like and a subscribe and a follow on their Spotify or YouTube or wherever you like to check out your music. And so please check them out when they perform nearby. You're going to love either one of their performances. They all put on a great live show. As always, our hope here is to bring you your next favorite band. If you tuned in tonight because you already knew Brian Dunne or Fantastic Cat or George Harab for that matter, would really like to just thank you for tuning in. We hope you like what you heard and what you saw, and that you might want to give us a like and a subscribe and a follow so that we can bring you your next favorite band in a future week. Or your next favorite band may already be out there. As we mentioned, this is episode 150. All of them are available at nextfavband.com. If you need help navigating that, drop us a note. We'll help you find a couple episodes to focus in on and hopefully bring you your next favorite band. Lots of great stuff coming up, and we have Listen to the Dissonance at the end of the month. Hope to see you at a live show soon, especially that one. And we would like to play one more track, so don't go anywhere. As we mentioned, here is Something to Live For by Brian Dunne.
That'll tease